Hi there, folks. Welcome to Outside In. I'm Jenny Lay-Flurrie, and I have the honor and privilege to be here in New Orleans, in the home of Steve Gleason and his beautiful wife, who's sitting just here to my right, to talk about your new book. And there is, well, an incredible amount to get into. So, A Life Impossible, Living with ALS, Finding Peace and Wisdom Within a Fragile Existence. And it's, Steve, it's one heck of a story. It kind of details your journey from Spokane, Washington, a ton of sports. I learned a lot. Baseball, football, the Cougs, and Wazoo, then coming to New Orleans and the Saints, meeting Michelle, building your family, and everything that you've learned through that, including your journey with ALS. I've known you for a decade. In fact, it's exactly 10 years ago that we met. So I've been on the sidelines kind of watching this journey. And I read this book. There was stuff in there that I honestly didn't know. You kind of laugh a lot because your humor is ridiculous. You cry quite a bit. It's the wisdom that comes through as we go through it. And I want to get into some of this. Because honestly, Steve, I hesitate to look at you when I say this, but you hit me for six with this book. The commitment to your family, the community, the impact that you had on New Orleans, the impact that you've had on the ALS community, and more importantly, on yourself and the family. So I'm going to try and pick up some of these life lessons and these sort of bombs that you drop all the way through of pearls of wisdom and pick up on a few. And I'm going to start with your journey, social media, your work with Team Gleason. You've charted a ton of it over the years. You've even got this amazing documentary, Gleason, which is on Amazon. Watch it. That's just so special. But this is the next chapter. This is so much more. What inspired you to write this book at this time? What are your goals? I know it's not been an easy one to get here.
We're now 13 years into our journey with ALS, and while I'm not sure there's ever the perfect time to share our experience with the world, this time seemed good enough to carry out my intention in writing this book. This is my story, our story, of enduring drastic change, suffering heart-wrenching loss, and ultimately finding a way to move through those circumstances, to discover happiness and peace of mind. It's not a book about ALS, Jenny. It's not a book about sports. And it's not a book about dying. Jenny, this book is about living. I'm obviously a little biased, but I believe this story is a human story, and my intention in writing it was to share the connection that we all have for anyone who might benefit from it. This book is for anyone who has experienced pain, sorrow, or even tragedy. This is a book about seeing adversity as the ultimate adventure, and then finding the extraordinary within each of our own hearts, minds, and spirit. It was my intention in writing this to share what I have learned on this journey with others so that they, too, can live productive, meaningful lives, no matter what circumstances they may be in. It's a love story, a raw, unsparing look at the human condition, something of a guide for people to bolster their ability to overcome loss, embrace fear, and transform suffering into strength.
Let's talk about one of the other key pieces, which is travel. It's been a key part of your life, starting the same state as the home of Microsoft. So Washington, Spokane, here you talk about Machu Picchu, you talk about New Zealand, you take a honeymoon, which I'm just deeply envious of, because it was long and it was beautiful, and I know you still remember it deeply. You talk about all these different places and what you love, and now you fund people with ALS to go on their own adventures. What is it about travel, about getting out there that's so important to you that I know you prioritize it yourself, but you now work to fund others doing the same?
I grew up fascinated by the world of exploration. I would assert that all humans have exploration in our DNA. While I played 8 years in the NFL, I was able to throw on a backpack and travel the globe during my off seasons. Seeing different cultures and customs was exciting and fulfilling for me. It broadened my perspective and gave me insight. After my ALS diagnosis, I wanted to instill in the community the idea that our physical limitations should not set our boundaries. So I chose to continue to not only travel and explore for myself, but to also make that possible for others. I find that many people with ALS often accept their assumed limitations. I believe, with our Team Gleason adventures, we are helping expand those boundaries and remove some of those limitations. What I think has been really extraordinary is that the idea of removing limitations and expanding boundaries is universal, so even people who have no connection to ALS can identify with the concept. So adventures can change how people live, whether they have been affected by ALS or not. In the past 5 to 6 years, I've become diligently focused about exploring the vast cosmos of the mind and removing any limiting beliefs or boundaries that have been constructed in that space. As these limiting beliefs are deconstructed, there is a unique freedom that I never knew before this exploration.
So removing life's limitations. And you talk a lot about a lot of different loves and things that keep you grounded. Another one being music. Anything from Pearl Jam to the Gorge Amphitheater in Washington State, which if you haven't been, my goodness, it's the most amazing natural amphitheater. And just your investment in the arts as a whole, which reminded me of when you and I first met, which was back in 2014. And it was after your Super Bowl ad, which you did with Microsoft, which we filmed right here 10 years ago. We met in Seattle, and you asked me 2 things. And I think it's only fair that I ask these back to you in return. I've waited 10 years for this. And your 2 questions were, what football team do I support? And I answered Aston Villa because I'm British and soccer is what I think about when you say football. And how does a deaf girl enjoy music? And what was my favorite album? Which actually I think we've got some mutual there because I love Paul Simon and Graceland. But buddy, what are your 2 favorite football, which I know is going to put you on the spot, and I don't hate that. And what is your favorite music?
Jenny, we may agree on many things, but it's doubtful we will ever agree on our favorite football teams, or that Marmite is better than Vegemite. I remain steadfast in my allegiance to Liverpool as my favorite football team in the Premier League. My favorite American football team is obviously the New Orleans Saints. If not for my journey through athletics that landed me in my old office in the Superdome, I would not have met my wife, Michelle, or had our children, Rivers and Gray, nor would I have made an untold number of friends and connections that led me to this place today. As for music, I love music. It brings a healing frequency to my body and my mind. Something that I feel is so powerful about music is that the greatest music allows us to have what I call direct experience. Direct experience, meaning that it seems we have learned to label and conceptualize and analyze pretty much every aspect of our lives. But what if we are able to experience something without or before our mind analyzes it, whether it's a good or bad experience? I think that is a more powerful way to live our life. I believe the direct experience is possible to do in every aspect of life, but music makes that easier for our minds. Music helps us know and experience directly. I'm sure everyone has been in that situation, when you're listening to a song, and you just can't describe how you are feeling. Not only that, you don't even need to describe it. That conceptual, analyzing part of the mind, that petulant part of our minds, that wants fulfillment by achieving or displaying, that part of the mind goes silent, and you're experiencing the spirit and the frequency of the music. You can't tell if the music is moving through you, or you are moving through the music. You're just completely free, feeling it, experiencing it directly. Strangely, now that I'm not able to move or talk, I feel the direct experience of freedom with music even more intimately.
I think music is something that can be so inclusive. I'm watching you and everyone else in some of your concerts that you've been to feel that freedom, I think is just incredibly important as a key component of life. And you say it far better than, of course, I could ever say it. But freedom is also something that ALS, MND, Lou Gehrig's, this miserable disease removes. And so let's get into that a little bit. It's a disease that impacts a growing number of people, at least 30,000 in the US alone, and we know a lot more around the world, and you're connected to so many of them. It's horribly hard to diagnose. And you talk about that process in the book, and it's kind of an exclusion process where the only way that you know that you have ALS is because you've ruled out everything else. So it's a long process. And then it goes on to impact clearly you, and your connection, your communication. That's kind of the obvious, but it also changes the path of everyone around you, your loved ones, Michelle, the family. It builds new connections with caregivers, and some of those I know have been incredibly important in your life. It ain't easy, and that's something has become one of your mantras. But life so rarely is. And this is a 13-year journey you've been on. So benefit of hindsight, sir, you are one of the wisest people I know. What advice would you have for people who are starting this journey, who are living this journey as people with or carers of? And what would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
I can't move or talk. My condition makes life difficult for Michelle, Rivers, and Gray. I move very slowly. The rest of my family, including Michelle, especially Michelle, moves very fast. While the eye tracking software and voice banking technology I use is state of the art, I still communicate about 11 times slower than an ordinary human. There are multiple times each day when I want to interact with Rivers or Gray, or even Michelle. The moment passes me by before I can engage with them. Each morning requires a 90-minute workout, with caregivers to stretch, get lifted out of bed, poop, brush my teeth, shower, and dress for the day. And it's another 20 to 40-minute process to prepare me for bed. And this is the case every single day. These challenges nearly break me daily. At times, the effort it takes for me to connect with other people can be difficult and exhausting. And often the effort is unsuccessful or completely backfires. This can be heart-crushing, a feeling of disappointment and failure that I had never known before ALS. While my body has become a prison, and I face impossible adversity each day, I have been able to survive and be productive by developing a personal formula for resilience. I have learned to accept life's circumstances, to transform suffering into strength, and move through fear to find freedom. Everyone has an inherent sense of inadequacy, especially in this age of technology and social media. We have always encountered adversity and fear. We're all powerless to control and change most of life's circumstances, but all of us do have the power to change ourselves. If my journey can be of any help for other people to find the extraordinary within and their own path, then I see that as success. I'm learning to embrace feelings like loneliness, inadequacy, and all the faces of fear. Feelings appear and feelings disappear, but I'm learning that I don't have to be hostage to the thoughts and feelings that pass through my mind. I often tell others living with ALS to keep your perspective on the long game. We will all have moments of frustration, loneliness, or struggle, but if we can practice patience and remain poised in the midst of chaos, we can take small steps toward healing and success in the long game.
Resilience, I love how you put it. And I think that's kind of, you said it earlier, that your recipe for resilience means this isn't a book about ALS. This isn't a book about, the journey that you were on here. It's something that everyone in this book can pick up and learn from, no matter where they are. I think we've all experienced a small dose of that, of what you're talking about. So I love how you put that down. I will also say you've got a pretty wicked skincare routine, and there's a heavy dose of comedy in this house that also comes through in the book. You had me sort of laughing, and it's you do that here. I've known that's how you operate. But we are Microsoft. We have to talk about technology. You mentioned it just then, how you communicate. There's a lot to go into. You famously said, and I probably repeated it more than most humans, until there is a cure for ALS, technology is the cure. You're sitting here using that and proving that it is how you communicate with Michelle. It's how you communicate with the kids. It also, I didn't realize this until you wrote it, it led you to your journey with social media, which opened you up to, I don't know how many followers you have, but it's a couple, I think, at this point. Podcasts, apps, movie time. But let's get real. It's frustrating. 15 to 20 words per minute. Kids often walk off. People often walk off before you've actually answered the question. And small changes. There was one in there where I just kind of went, ugh, like Windows update, making a change. Can dramatically impact your life. And I know you feel that. I hesitate to even look at you. I know you feel that. And that's the core focus of Team Gleason, which is putting technology into people's hands and helping them to do what you do, which you've mastered. But I'll be self-critical. I'm in a job that works on accessibility with an army of amazing people at Microsoft. I know there's far more that we can and should be doing. You've got 200,000 softies that are listening right now. What would you say to them? What is it that you want to see? What is it that you would like to see for the rest of the pals around there and to think about technology going forward? What is that for you?
When I was diagnosed with ALS on January 5th, 2011, 13 years ago, there were no effective treatments for ALS. Although there are more trials and ongoing studies in ALS research than ever before, there are still no lasting treatments for the disease. I think it's important to mention, ALS is a disease that destroys most people's purpose. It can suck away the meaning of life, not only for the person who is diagnosed, but also for families and close loved ones. However, it doesn't cause a person to lose their desire to intimately connect with the people they love. In the months after I was diagnosed, I was searching desperately to find some type of solution. If there was absolutely any hint of a possibility that I could figure out how to live a meaningful life despite my ALS diagnosis, I wanted to do everything I could do to discover a way to make that happen. The answer came in the form of technology. What I found was much more encouraging than my medical doctors had offered. I found that, with the use of life-sustaining equipment and innovative technology, patients were continuing to be productive and purposeful for years, even decades. While there is no medical cure for ALS, technology can act as a cure. Stated another way, technology can give back most of what ALS takes away. The technology I use is very beneficial. I'm able to type, speak, and navigate a computer or tablet no different than any of you ordinary humans. I can text, post, even pull up any song I want on Spotify. I challenged you and Microsoft at a hackathon to help develop the technology where others and I can drive power wheelchairs with our eyes. This is now an available product and is entirely liberating. At my house, technology allows me to control nearly everything in my environment: computers, TVs, lights, thermostats, blinds, and doors, using just my eyes. Again, much of what ALS has taken away, technology has given back to me. I will put it bluntly. Instead of being a productive member of society, and a pretty badass father, without technology, I would be dead. Because of technology, people like me have options. But, obviously though, we believe things can be improved. We can improve typing and communication speeds. An ordinary human speaks at around 180 words per minute. I've been pretty damn fast with my typing, and I type at around 12-15 words per minute. Less than 10% of what is expected. This is the part of life that kicks my ass and hits me with deep anguish and frustration. And, while I expect that someday users like me will communicate with near conversational speed, on the short-term horizon, there are no major breakthroughs in improving this situation. I know you all and others are working to help elevate this effort. Even a 50% improvement would be sublime. There's other ongoing work that we see as mission critical as advances in communications and mobility are explored. Currently, eye tracking isn't effective outdoors, but it is improving. Creating reliable technology that works in the sunlight removes debilitating barriers. I'm inspired and interested in machine intelligence and brain-machine interfaces. This past year, advancements in brain control interface implants have been seemingly successful. For those who cannot move or use their eyes or other movements to navigate a tablet, our brain is the last frontier to connect with the world outside our bodies. We've all heard statements from prominent thinkers and technology pioneers who caution about the dangers of technology and artificial intelligence. Here's my thinking. Like any instrument of power, technology must be designed with extreme care and wisdom, and with the goal of connecting humans more intimately with one another, to be beneficial for the goals of helping to end human discontent and suffering.
Great wisdom on AI as we chart this new chapter. I think you know how big it is for Microsoft and I think for the whole industry right now. And I think some hopeful, really big advances on technology in the pipe. But let's talk about the other one that you hinted at as we went into this, which is curing ALS. You have a sister nonprofit, Answer ALS. It's experts all around the world who work on ALS using Azure to collect data, and data is kind of the critical element that then you can help to determine markers. I'm simplifying probably far more than I should, but it does kind of put that onus on the data, and it asks a few questions, because that being the critical sticky wicket to really pulling together the pieces of this puzzle. So, question for you. You've challenged the research community to think like a beginner. How important is that, and the autonomy of that data, and that sort of step of who owns that data? Should I share that data? How important is all of that in what you want to do, which is cure ALS?
This past year, nearly $500 billion has been spent globally on cancer research. And while there are effective treatments for many forms of cancer, there are no cures. In contrast, less than $2 billion has been spent on ALS research globally. This past year, finding a cure isn't realistic, but like cancer, finding treatments that work to slow, stop, or reverse ALS is possible. A decade ago, I asked researchers and clinicians to use a beginner's mind when thinking about their approach to ALS research, because the status quo was unacceptable. At the time, ALS was being treated as one disease, because there was no way of identifying the type of ALS someone had, much less explore a way to treat that individual. We believed that the only way to discover the many forms of ALS was to collect as much data and samples from as many people as possible with ALS, then freely share the data with the global research community to interrogate and unravel the many forms of the disease. Answer ALS was founded with that singular mission, and to date, over 350 independent ALS research projects have been created from our open access data repository. Data is critical to our understanding of ALS. In the past, research relied on anecdotal evidence and abstract observation, while our rich data from over 1,000 ALS participants is providing indisputable evidence and validation. Healthcare policies and laws are written to protect people's privacy. When diagnosed with ALS, people are most often given 2 to 5 years to live. Privacy is typically not the priority. Time is the most important commodity, and when working toward expediting research through human data, these privacy policies can create walls when a mere speed bump would do.
Finding peace and wisdom in a fragile existence. It is the red thread, and you dropping gold bombs everywhere throughout the book, which kind of culminate in the last couple of chapters. And, oh my God, the learning, teaching, anything from mindfulness, meditation, the importance of the beautiful oak trees out here in the back, the moon. There's so much in here that I think people need to read. It's more than ALS. It's a lesson for life. And I hope you get your honorary doctorate in philosophy at some point. But you also mentioned several authors. And you talk about a few in there that I texted you. I was like, oh my gosh, books that have meant an enormous amount to me, to my husband, to our family and our life. So let me stop butchering kind of the themes in your book. How would you encapsulate that approach, that philosophy, and the key influences? What is that one book that you would recommend?
I love this kind of question, Jenny. Thank you. I'd like to answer your last question about a book recommendation before I dive into the other questions. So, Jenny, you know I just finished a 20-chapter book about my life. So if you're asking for one single book recommendation from me, here you go. A Life Impossible written by an extraordinary young man. It's full of lovable characters. You will laugh, you will cry, you will probably laugh and cry at the same time, which I would say is the perfect gift. You'll witness the adventures, misadventures, outright failures, and suffering of the protagonists in the story in a raw and visceral way. But you will be inspired to move through your own failures and pain, to be a better human, live a fruitful life, and you will be motivated to do good and help others. You won't agree with the author on everything, and that is perfectly fine. But you will be inspired to more deeply appreciate how fortunate you are, and you will, perhaps, be motivated to discover unique ways to explore and enjoy this crazy, wonderful life. How is that for a book recommendation, my friend?
Being a dad. And what does it mean to be a dad? What does it mean to you? What does it mean in this century with everything that there is? And I know how important this is to you. And I will just say, I've learned a silly amount from you about being a parent. I was picking up these, again, more gold, reading to your kids, writing to your kids, the level of humor and self-reflection that is just clearly part of who you are. And Michelle, by the way, who's in the back telling me when I mess up. It's a core part of how you parent. So what does being a dad mean to you?
As parents, I believe that presence is our purpose. To simply be present, with no timeline or agenda, to pay full attention to our kids, that is equal to love. Fatherhood has been a huge and crucial part of my entire ALS journey. As the disease progressed and evolved, so has my outlook on and the approach to parenting. I have been passionate about being involved in our kids' lives, but trying to be super involved has been a point of suffering for me, my family, and caregivers. Not being able to be the actively involved and engaged parent that I've always wanted to be, and that I see other dads getting to be, has broken and tethered my mind. I mainly have to rely on the help and enthusiasm of other people to relay any message to our kids. Most of my messages must go without the tone of compassion, very slowly, and most importantly, without my enthusiastic energy. Over the years, I've evolved my approach to fatherhood. Rather than being a disciplinary teacher type dad, I work to experience life with Rivers and Gray. I call Rivers and Gray brother and sister quite a bit, and I tell them that they are ultimately in charge of their lives and decisions. At this point, I'm here to be an example and love them as unconditionally as possible. That will never change, ever. No need to talk or lecture. In those instances, my presence alone is indeed enough. I try to grow and learn, fall and fail, and ride the wave of life with them. Eventually, our children will be our equal in stature and knowledge and eventually surpass us. It's an evolutionary inevitability. I quite look forward to stepping aside as they take the lead.
Steve, we could talk all day. I'm grateful for you, for your time, for allowing us all, there's a crew here, into your home here in New Orleans, and for writing all of this down. I know it's been an incredible journey to get here, and just the impact that you are going to have out there is untold, my friend. And I'm grateful to you. And I'm grateful to this crew and all of us. That wraps up this session of Outside In. Folks, please read The Life Impossible, Living with ALS, Finding Peace and Wisdom Within a Fragile Existence by Mr. Steve Gleason. Thank you.
That was epic, y'all. Thanks for your help today. I love you.